These are the instructions for Concentration and Molarity Lab Part 1. In Part 1, you have a patient and you have to make IV fluids for them in the right concentration. So there are a couple of things you need. First, you need your NaCl, which is in blue. You should have another Ziploc bag with red powder, and the red powder is the C6H12O6. Right. You also have your graduated cylinder, a 400 milliliter beaker, a 40 milliliter beaker, which is significantly smaller, weigh paper, scale, spoon, and your pipette with the glass rod inserted. I'll show you how to do this in a little bit, but let's talk about the details first. So before you even create the solution or the concentration, you have to figure out how many grams of NaCl you need. Right? To complete that, this is a guide to help you complete the process. Basically, it's very similar to your pre-lab question 1 that you did yesterday. So you know the equation for molarity, right? And you can use that to find moles. After you find moles, you will use molar mass to find out how many grams of NaCl you will have to weigh. So that right there. Once you figure that out, you can complete the next steps below. And basically, however many grams you calculated that you need, you're going to weigh out onto this weigh paper using the spoon to extract your NaCl onto the weigh paper. Double check to make sure your scale is in grams, because sometimes, especially these scales, can be in ounces, so double check to make sure that there's a letter there that stands for grams, which would be G. Right? Once you weigh out the correct amounts, you're going to kind of fold it like a taco, like that, and then you're going to pour the rest of your powder or your NaCl in your 400 milliliter beaker. Then you're going to add up to the 250 milliliter line. You can use your graduated cylinder to get some water from the closest adjacent sink to you. Right? After you've done this, you created a solution for your first patient, patient A, Pam, and then you can move on to Pam's tiny pet rat, Winston. Right? For calculating Winston's solution and what his concentration should be, you need the second equation, which is listed here, and it's very similar to part 3 or question number 3 of your pre-lab questions. Right? You can pause and kind of decipher out what each part means here. Once you've done that, you can go ahead and get started on the next few steps. So let's pretend I've already made my original IV fluids for Pam. This is my concentration. And next I'm going to need to learn how to use this thing, which is my pipette. So the way you hold it is your inside of your forefingers go here, and then your thumb goes on top. Okay, it's hard to show camera, kind of like that, where my thumb goes up and down behind this thing. Right. When I go down, if I need to suck up liquid using my pipette, I'm going to insert the tip of the pipette into the solution, and then I'm going to roll my thumb in a downward motion, right? And that will suck up any liquid that I need. So notice that the increments go from 9 up to 8 up to 7. So from 9 to 8, if you subtract the two numbers, you get 1, so that's 1 milliliter. So you have to work or think backwards, right? So if you hit the 9 mark, that means you have taken up 9 milliliters, and so on and so forth. Right? If you roll your thumb the opposite way, where you're rolling your thumb in an upward motion, so this thing is going to go downward, it's going to eject the liquid, right? So let's say you want to hit the 7 line and you got too much, so just roll your thumb towards the sky upward and the liquid would go down, right? If you want to transfer 20 milliliters, you're just going to suck up until where it hits the 0 line. Make sure there's no air bubbles. And then to eject the liquid, there's like kind of a button on the side. Just press that button. And it's going to eject all of your liquid down, right? These tubes are for 10 milliliters at a time, so you're going to need to do this twice to transfer 10 milliliters, or sorry, 20 milliliters total over, right? Once you've done that, and you've calculated your final volume, the final volume will tell you how much volume you should have total, right? So that's how much you need to add until it reaches up to whatever line your BF is. And that's how you do part 2. When you're done, you can clean this and pour this down the sink and rinse it with water. This you're going to keep in case we get to part 3. I'm not sure if we're going to get to part 3, but just keep it just in case. Otherwise, if it's the end of the lab, then both these can go down the sink and cleaned. Same with the graduated cylinder. For the glass rods, you're going to carefully and very gently pull this out because it's glass, and then you're going to place this back in the casing that it came into, right? Also, you're going to make sure this gets rolled all the way down back to the bottom and it's placed back in its box. And that's pretty much it for cleanup. Everything else goes back in the black bin except for your weight paper. This is the only thing you should be tossing away, right? And that's it for the lab for part 1. It's going to be pretty much the same thing as for part 2, right? So if you do get to part 2, same exact steps and kinds of procedures.